Well, thank you, General, for taking the time to talk with me just ahead of the U.S. Army's Association Conference. We are, many months into watching the conflict in Ukraine play out. So, what are you watching most closely when it comes to Russia and its struggles? And what is this teaching you? And how might this affect areas like modernization or force structure or troop presence in the future? How are you looking at that?
Yeah, I think it's really important, really how the Army came about. We learned a lot from the Arab-Israeli War in 1973, coming out of Vietnam, and that's how we shaped the Army over the last 40 years. And so we're taking the same look at Ukraine, and we're taking a look, is the doctrine right? Our organizations right? Are our modernization priorities the right ones? And it's helping us think our way through that. And even more importantly, are our people programs right? Do we have the right people? And we're seeing, the importance of non-commissioned officers play out, and how we're going to operate in the future in a highly contested battlefield, which we're seeing. And, we're learning some good lessons from that.
Okay. Can you break it down just a little bit in terms of modernization priorities? The Army laid those out 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago, before we saw all of this play out. Did the Army get it right in terms of those priorities based on what you're seeing now play out in this type of scenario? Yeah. Also you're looking at China, which is a completely different beast, but when you look at where you are with the Army modernization priorities, are they right, or do you see some areas for adjustment or more emphasis?
No, I actually think we got them pretty right. Number one priority, long-range precision fires. You look at what HIMARS is doing, the game changer. And quite frankly, for us, that is not long-range precision fires. It's actually shorter range. And then you start to take a look at, imagine if you had PrSM strike missile capability that rides on HIMARS. You would be able to strike, much more command and control, the logistics, and all those type things you have. Imagine if you had PrSM and the mid-range capability that could strike ships. We've seen the value of being able to strike ships and the value that brings. And then certainly with hypersonics, it just gives you the capability to do those type things, and then even extended range cannon. All those things matter in a large-scale combat operations. But what also matters is, some people have said, well, do we need armor anymore? Absolutely. So mobile protected fire, fighting in urban environments is going to be extremely important. The optionally manned fighting vehicle is going to be extremely important. Robotic control vehicles are going to play out for man-unmanned teaming. And then we start to take a look at, the more capable aircraft with future vertical lift, the future attack reconnaissance aircraft, the future long-range assault aircraft. Again, the range and speed and the things that we're going to be able to do are just going to really give us the advantage that we need. And let's not forget about air and missile defense. The ability to shoot missiles down. I've talked before about countering unmanned aerial systems. Absolutely key. Yeah. And then how we're equipping our soldiers. IVAS is starting to come in, and very excited about that. What I'm trying to at least caution people, the alpha model, if you will, is a little bigger, more clunky if you want, but the transformational capability is going to be incredible. And then how we're going to arm our soldiers with next generation combat weapons. So I feel we're absolutely on the right track. We'll certainly modify as we go. Yeah. But what's really important, I think, is we have to deliver. That's what we have to do. We're talking. I like to talk about 24 signature systems, and 23. The Secretary talking about that, but we have to make that happen, and we have to keep all these systems on cost, performance, and schedule, and we have to get the resources to make sure they happen.
Okay, in terms of force structure or troop presence in Europe, force posture in Europe has sort of differed in various administrations across your tenure as chief. I think we've gone from withdrawing and then rebuilding Europe and then going back a little bit. And, obviously now we're looking at increasing force posture in Europe again. So are you content we made the right decisions on force posture in the past, given what we've seen in Ukraine?
Yeah, I do. I think the things that we've been able to do is directly related to the force posture. It starts with a four-star command. Previously General Cavoli, but now General Williams, and having the command and control structures. We could work very closely with allies and partners, extremely important. having the theater set for logistics, and so having prepositioned stocks over there. That's why we're able to get our Armored Brigade Combat Team, and even the 82nd drew equipment from those areas, and then just all the logistics that went along with that. And then having brigades over that could rapidly reinforce our allies and partners was extremely important.
So in terms of Army prepositioned stock and the fact that you've been able to draw on that in recent months, are you seeing any areas where you might want to, beef up Army prepositioned stock in Europe? Are you determining that maybe we have the right balance right now? Do we need different locations? Where's the Army in terms of looking at that?
Well, we're certainly taking a look at the future posture, and that's going to be really determined by kind of what's happening in Europe over the next couple of years. We'll provide options, but the takeaway for me from prepositioned stock is, well, first of all, you want to have prepositioned stock in the areas where you think you're going to need it. That saves time. That's the way we were able to take the 1st Brigade, 3rd Infantry, which is an Armored Brigade Combat Team, and basically have it in place, shooting on a range in 7 days. That if we had to put it on ships and move it, the physics wouldn't allow us to do that. But more importantly, so you need to have it there. It needs to be modernized because you don't want to have old equipment in prepositioned stocks. That's not very helpful. So we did. And the third thing is it needs to be ready to go. It has to be ready equipment. And then even what was very helpful was the fact that we had rehearsed moving, with our allies and partners, equipment through Europe allowed us to move it very, very quickly. So that the right transport was available to make that happen.
Okay. In terms of what units may be asking for in Europe now that we're observing what's happening in Ukraine and that's influencing things, are you seeing units urgently ask for things like better active protection system for their vehicles? Obviously we have active protection systems on Abrams, but not yet on Stryker or Bradley. So anything you're looking at sort of accelerating that hasn't moved as quickly as you wanted, or potentially 155 millimeter howitzers, things like the Army was evaluating about a year or so ago for potential deployment for units in Europe. Anything that you're looking at that may have been backburnered for a little bit, but given what we're seeing now might change?
Well, I mean, the first thing we want to do is replenish all the ammunition and weapon systems that we've done, and we want to replenish with modernization. So what I mean by that is, we've provided M113s, armored personnel carriers. We don't want to replace them. What we really want to do is take the AMV, the armored multipurpose vehicle, and replace them if we can. And that's what we're working with Congress. Some of the systems like the 155s, we'd want to replace with HIMARS and taking a look at that. So as we come out of it, we don't want to, as I like to say, buy new old stuff. Yeah. What we want to do is buy new things and make sure we're doing that. But again, we're taking a hard look at everything, and even it's not just material solutions. It's also how we operate and reinforcing, the idea that having a non-commissioned officer corps is extremely important if you're going to do the type of operations that we need to do. Logistics are extremely important if you're going to support an operation like this, because the rates of utilization for ammunition, especially with artillery, is fairly high in a large-scale combat operation.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, and as you retire from the Army next year, the hope is that the service is able to get 24 systems, signature systems out of the 35 plus systems that fit into your Army modernization priority portfolio into soldiers' hands in FY23. So what challenges are you up against, as the service tries to meet these goals? What are some of the things that could potentially derail this? I mean, we're looking at inflation and some other things, but what are some of the things that concern you in terms of getting to this point with all these systems?
Anytime you're fielding a new system, we're doing soldier touch points along the way, and you're going to have things that don't go right. As you have new missiles and new systems. It's a learning process. We're doing it very, very quickly, and when you do that, you take risk. But what I think is really important is getting to the alpha model, if you will. Get the capability set, get it in the hands of soldiers, then we'll incrementally improve it over the next couple of years, and then you have it as a program of record, and it's got the support to go forward, and then we can bring in all the things that need to go along with it, the doctrine, the organizations, the facilities, and all those things that have to support it. But I think, as I take a look at history with chiefs of staff, I think Marshall said it the best before World War II. He said, when I had the time, I didn't have the resources, and when he got the resources, he didn't have the time. So we're trying to find a balanced approach. Well, we have some time and some resources to get as much done and get the organic industrial base set and get the modernization in place. And then if something happens, we can rapidly spin it up if we need to do that.